My name is Dr. Dell Allen. I grew up on a small farm in northern Utah, attended Utah State University, studying tool engineering as a major, then went on to work in industry for some time, ended up setting up the program in manufacturing engineering technology at Brigham Young University, defining the courses, getting the equipment, hiring the other instructors, recruiting students, placing students, all the things that go on between. And that was a fun journey, and it was very rewarding. Brigham Young University was set up initially as a school to train teachers, and the motto is enter to learn and go forth to serve. They had places where the students could learn carpentry and drafting and machining and all those other practical arts. Then later we got into more sophisticated engineering kind of courses. The university has tried to be looking after the whole person, the intellectual, the physical, the social, the emotional, the spiritual, all aspects of life. And so that's a well-rounded program. As students begin to identify their talents and use them, it's a marvelous thing. When I was teaching a graduate class at Utah State University several years ago, these were seniors and graduate students, and I said, send me a 2-page memo on what your talents are and what you're going to do with them. They said, we've never been asked that question in our lives. We don't know what they are and we don't know how to find out. And I said, well, ask your second grade teacher or your mom or your girlfriend. These were 25 engineer male students. They finally ended up with the memos to me. They said that was the hardest assignment that they'd ever had. But now with StrengthsFinder online, in 30 minutes you can find out what they are. And you can begin to recognize them and use them in your work. I like to use a little matrix, listing my talents across the top, the goals or problems I'm trying to solve down the bottom, and then fill in the matrix. If I have this talent, how do I solve that? If I have this talent, how do I solve it? And so on. And it helps you to turn your talents into real strengths and apply them in your life. As I started teaching at Brigham Young University, I did a lot of study to find out what the students needed to do when they graduated. So my doctoral study identified 100 performance objectives that the students would do in their companies. And so we were trying to make each student a super person, Superman. We worked them really hard. And it worked for a while. We got accreditation from the Engineering Council for professional development. The students were getting high salaries, highest in the engineering college actually. But after about 30 years, just 10 years before or 5 years before my retirement, I had an epiphany. One of my students came to me and he said, I've been on the GI Bill for a long time. I've had 5 transfers into departments. I don't fit in this major, but I have to stay. So I said, Jerry, I'll help you get through. So we did. We got him graduated. The next thing I found out that he was working in California for Rockwell, manufacturing the ceramic tiles for the re-entry of the space vehicles. And I thought, every student doesn't have to be a super person, but the team collectively does. And so at that time, I decided that we needed to focus on the strengths of individuals and not try to train them into things they weren't quite as good at. And so that became my theme for thereafter. Then after I retired, moved to Utah State University area, they asked me to come and teach, so I taught there. The first year I had 208 students in my manufacturing processes class, and I wondered, will they ask me to teach this again? Which they did. In the interim, son Kurt introduced me to the work of Roger Schenck with the story-based learning. So I wrote a novel, 10 Days with Green Manufacturing Company, and in that novel I incorporated all of the assignments, things that I wanted the students to learn. So we didn't have lectures, assignments, and tests. We just had stories to follow. And each week, the students would read one chapter. I would circulate around the campus. We were in 8 different classrooms. So we would meet together on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We would meet, and they were running their own teams, 17 different teams. And it was so rewarding and amazing to see the growth in these students. They'd been competing against each other. Now they were collaborating and working together, understanding each other's talents and strengths. As I went one day, one of the project managers says, I think with our team we could solve any engineering project. They developed confidence in one another. And so that was a really rewarding thing for my last hurrah of teaching as a professor. If I were to create an online program, I'd want to work with the customers. I'd want them to help me define what the students need to be able to do. And then I would bring that back into the university and I'd write stories of how they use that. I think I would have some opportunities for evaluating how well the performance went. And I like 2 simple questions. When you do something, if somebody can ask you, what went well? And you like to amplify as many things as you can think of that went well. And then your next question is, what would you do differently if you were to do that again the next hour? And usually 2 or 3 things that you know of. Somebody else doesn't have to tell you. You know what has to be done. And I think those are 2 good ways to improve the teaching learning process.